Welcome, welcome, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Good to see you all.
Yeah, you too.
We'll just give it a second here as folks are coming in, and then we'll get started. Hi, Hamdi.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Glad you could join us.
I'm so happy to join. I was struggling with the link earlier, but I was lucky to find it.
Great. I think we're ready to get started, Marty. What do you say?
I agree, Patience, and maybe while Patience gets us going here, everybody can put their name and affiliation in the chat box. So we've got many folks to do around the horn introductions, but I will just say, Patience, it's great to have you here to kick us off this morning.
Thank you. So welcome everyone to our fourth Black Homeownership Summit and our first one in 2022. And glad to see all of you begin to put your names in the chat. And if you could also change your name on Zoom to reflect your organization and affiliation, that would be helpful. I'd also encourage folks, as you are not speaking, to keep yourself on mute so we have a smooth flowing virtual room. And with that, we want to acknowledge that we are all, wherever we are today, on the unceded ancestral land of the Coast Salish peoples, the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Squamish, Tulalip, and Makushit nations. We do the land acknowledgement to acknowledge the first peoples of this land and make sure that we are not supporting any erasure of their history. And I will encourage you to take a look at the nativeland.ca website to learn more about the original stewards of this land and also donate to support some of the great work that is going on in our communities. I'm glad that we have once again this great group of people and the partnership that we continue to move forward in really supporting the Black Homeownership Initiative work. I think we were reminded just beginning of this year in January with some of the Zillow research reports that came out showing that Black households are denied mortgage applications 84% times more than their fellow white counterparts. And that just reminds us of the reality of the work that's ahead to address the persistent inequities that remain within our systems. And for the agenda today, we continue to move forward to really close that racial wealth gap with our comprehensive work. And we'll start off, of course, we're kicking it off at this point, and then we'll go right into the work group updates on the work that was started. And after that, we will have Denise really take us through the buyer ID and preparation work in terms of the comprehensive work they've done with the presentation on that front. And then Marty will take us through the work on the 3C initiative, which, by the way, we're really excited was kicked off this week. They were launching their partnership with JP Morgan Chase and other partners in moving forward the Black Home Initiative. And this will be part of the Black Homeownership Initiative implementation. So we're really excited to hear what's ahead around that work. And then at the end, we will get an update from Darrell Smith, who serves on the State Department of Commerce statewide disparity work group on home ownership, to give us a sense of the work that is coming out of that group. And then I'll close us off with just some quick state updates. As you know, today is the last day where they have the opportunity to vote on bills and get them out of the opposite house. And we are tracking bills as they are being voted on just at this moment. And with that, I think we are going right into the first part of the agenda. So over back to you, Marty.
Well, thank you, Patience, and good morning, everyone. For those of you who have been working fervently on the actual tactics for the plan, let me just do this. I might try to bring that up quickly just so you all can see some of the hard work that's going on. And then we will jump right into some reporting from folks. And so this document is being worked on by a number of different groups. You're going to hear from the buyer ID group in a little bit here, but you can see they've done a lot of work on their tactics, pre-purchase counseling as well. Some great stuff in play, purchase supports and tools is coming along well as well. And then credit and lending. And they've prioritized their work as well. And housing production, somebody who shall remain nameless has to do a little more cleanup in this section yet, but I think we're feeling pretty good about it. And then policies and practices, of course, are the overachievers in the bunch, and we're all trying to keep up with them. And finally, the hard work of many of you who are with us today, I see, on the sustaining group. This group has really been jumping in and trying to figure out how we make sure we sustain our existing buyers and owners. And so I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but really would be open right now for a few minutes to hear from some folks about some exciting things going on in their arena, new, unique, and what's happened since. And Howard, I'm actually not going to give you the floor, but I'm going to say kudos to you all. I think you've launched another major new markets initiative with NeighborWorks America in several areas for homeownership. How many units, Howard, is this next round going to produce?
I think it's over 250.
Wow, that's great. And so we're looking forward to figuring out how we can tap more new markets money in this environment. Go ahead and raise your hand if you want to share some things. Otherwise, you know what happens when you're around me. I will start calling on people. Ollie.
Yes, hi. So I've been working on the credit and lending group, myself and Loretta. Just want to give an update as far as our 3 action items that we've been working on. The first one being training to get lending partners more comfortable with purchase assistance. That was our focus. And Lisa Goldsmith has been critical with this progress. We've made some progress with DFI to potentially add purchase assistance, down payment assistance to the continuing education required for mortgage loan originators. So that is progress in that direction. We won't see fruits for that until next year because it's too late this year to get into continuing education for 2022. But if things go well, potentially for 2023, that's I'm excited for that. That's definitely going to be a huge kudos as far as expanding mind share with mortgage loan originators working with folks. With that said, we're hoping to have some tools in place to help with the continuing education and with loan originators in general. So myself, Tina, and Caleb have been working on a tool, more of a proof of concept, to try to simplify the complexities of how someone can qualify for DPA and provide a tool that will be useful to loan originators. We've got a lot of good feedback from both Tina and Caleb, Tina from Verity and Caleb from KeyBank, as well as from Dietrich from the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, on how to make this tool as useful as possible. And what we've just, the tool in general seems to be working. We found that the big challenges are going to be keeping it updated and not having outdated tools out there. So we're proposing to have this hosted and managed by a neutral party. Hopefully the Washington Homeownership Resource Center is a goal there to have this supported and be a tool that can be used for training purposes. The last item that we have in place that we're working on is expanding the training for loan originators. I think that's going to fall into the DFI training, as well as there's been talk of doing like a homeownership fair. Kim Toski is working on that portion as well. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. I'm excited that things are actually happening that feel tangible and look like there are going to be solutions in the future.
Super, Ollie. Thanks for being brief, succinct, and to the point, and for hitting the mark. And I was just going to say, as you're talking about DFI, I know Lynn's with us, and Lynn has also raised her hand. So Lynn, take it away.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I was not on those meetings, but my understanding is we are not requiring DPA training of all MLOs. We are requiring training, and DPA training will be offered as one of those trainings, is my understanding, correct? Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
And Ollie, I'm going to put my email in the chat because we've been working with the Washington State Housing and Finance Commission on some tools. So it sounds like there's some duplicative work. So I'll send you my email. Thanks.
All right. Now we all figured out why we had to be here for this hour and a half or 2 hours this morning, so that we can make sure that all of the actions we have try to get aligned. Wonderful. And Anna, I don't believe is with us from Zillow, but Zillow has also launched their retail tool for people on the street who are interested in finding about down payment assistance. You can actually click on a property and see what DPA programs are available in that market from a consumer standpoint. So some progress all the way around. Zahid.
Yes, thank you very much. I was just wondering if that email and contacts can be shared in a group mail after the meeting. That way we all have it, and we can, better contact each other better and move, our great noble work together. So that's what I was thinking. Thank you.
I see. Yes, I now understand what you're saying. Yes, we will hopefully soon figure out a mechanism where we have a landing page for this network where everybody can be providing updates on a regular basis. But good point, and thank you. Between Allison and Patience, we will try to figure that out. Anybody else want to share some updates before I call on you? Kathleen, why are you not talking about your new tool?
Oh, would you like me to talk about the closed doors report? Happy to do that.
Briefly, please.
Briefly, please. Opportunity. We launched in January a tool called the Closed Doors Report and Tableau Dashboard. It provides the demonstration that we have a critical lack of supply of homes that are affordable to the people that we seek to serve. And it allows people on a local basis to look up the statistics that show the supply issue for them locally. There's also a report that goes with it that talks about challenges with using the HUD AMI standard as the benchmark for what is affordable, because that is an aggregate number that doesn't represent the full income spectrum, especially not the demonstrably lower incomes for Black and Brown people in our respective regions. So I will drop a link to that in the chat if Marty has not already done so, and encourage you to use it as you advocate for homeownership in your local areas. Thanks.
Super, thank you. I see Julie Howe is with us. Julie, how is the work around better understanding cooperatives coming together? Are you able to make some headway there?
Well, I mean, we just keep talking about it and making sure that it is included in kind of the conversations. But I don't have any major accomplishments to report just yet.
Super, thank you. Erica Malone, I don't know if you're with us or not, but I think you dropped an RFP out in the field recently.
I am with you. Hello. Sorry, my camera is not working for some reason. The RFP that we put out into the field recently was for an intermediary to administer some pre-development funding. That RFP is closed, and we have yet to make an announcement as to the decision about that intermediary, but that will be forthcoming. Thank you, Marty.
Super, thank you. And Uche, is there any news on ULEX and funding, or how is the project coming along?
The project is coming along well. We expect any day now to hear back from HUD that they are inviting us to submit our pre-application for review and subsequent application. Should be hearing something, if not by today, by Monday.
Super. Thank you for your persistence there. You're paving the way for a multi-unit structure that's going to be a cooperative near light rail. We need to duplicate, triplicate, and multiply that around the region. So keep working on breaking the ice. Hamdi, I see you're here. Did you get an announcement from the local LISC office? Are you able to share? Are you anything new there? She might not be able to. Oh, there we go.
Let me, as you may know, we have just started our project, and it is initial, initial stage where we are hiring people, and especially we have identified or maybe contracted like architects, and we're lucky that we have got pro bono firm that is Perkins Coie, a promise that they will do pro bono representation for us, which was great and something that made us happy. I think in general, we're picking the pieces to make sure that a big piece of something comes out, but not to the stage where I am really ready to talk about the details at this time, but definitely in the near future, yes.
Thank you. And Brett, did I see that you guys are opening up applications for another homeownership project somewhere nearby?
We are. And Ollie, you have more details than I do.
As far as our upcoming projects, I'm sorry.
I think I saw on LinkedIn that you were opening applications for.
Yeah, we've got applications open for 15th Avenue, which is in the West Seattle Delridge neighborhood. So those application pools open now, and we've also opened up our application pool for Stewart Meadows, which is our community in Ellensburg. There's going to be a total of 18 homes there. It's the first build that we're doing that's been done through that affiliate for over 2 years. So we're very excited. It's very needed in that community. So we're excited about that community as well. So if you know of anybody, especially in Ellensburg, send them our way.
Super. And Kathleen put in the chat that you guys are opening applications as well.
Yeah, we'll start marketing our Village Gardens homes, which are in the Central District, and will be sold under the community preference policy for folks who have historic ties to the Central District and who may have been displaced or are at risk of displacement. And our outreach partner on that project was Africtown Community Land Trust. So we're super excited about how relevant that project is to the conversation we're having today.
Very good. And I just want to reiterate, we're back at sort of the beginning stages of this work in terms of how do we make sure there's strong linkages between the formal sector lenders and underwriters and the nonprofit folks to make sure that referrals can happen. we're really trying to get away from this sense of denying people and saying there isn't an option, as opposed to let's bring everybody into the funnel who's near term, long term, or whatever, mortgage ready, and help them become that way. Tina, what's up with you in King County?
Good morning. I just wanted to share that we had an RFP that went out on January 19th. Applications are due March 28th. This is the Skyway specific RFP for, we have $5 million that we're putting out on that. And awards would be made for pre-development up to $500,000 maximum per project, and acquisition and or construction up to $2 million maximum per project. And this is for homeownership and rental projects.
Super. So I hope, Kathleen, I'm assuming that went through the homeownership affinity group. Everybody's aware. Let's keep that going. Who else? Lisa Goldsmith, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you've been pretty active. WMBA's been having some seminars, workshops. Anything you want to add about what's going on from the Mortgage Bankers Association?
I don't really have any updates beyond thank you, Marty, and Patience, both of you, for your participation in our Black Homeownership event. It was a huge success. And we probably should duplicate it in 90 days or so to reach a wider audience, even beyond the state. But thank you. I don't have anything beyond that.
Okay. Any others? We're right at time to move on to the next thing. Laura Benjamin.
Thanks, Marty. Just wanted to quickly update that Puget Sound Regional Council has updated the dissimilarity index, which looks at residential settlement patterns by race. And I can include a link to the website for that. And we're also trying to better look at housing type and trying to get some statistical analysis around settlement patterns and housing type to understand more about how single family zoning affects home ownership opportunities.
Thank you, Laura. And from all of you professional planners speak, translate that for us a little bit. How do you think this group can best leverage that information and data?
I think a lot of it is we're really just trying to put statistical analysis from to back what we've heard through lived experience. And I think we've found, especially when trying to advocate for policy and developing policy, that it's that combination of the quantitative and the qualitative together that really creates that more complex and holistic story. So I'd say by no means does the dissimilarity index tell the whole story, but I think it could kind of paint a broader picture and something that we encourage people to kind of incorporate into their work. And we're happy to help kind of translate some of it as well.
Super. All right. Thank you, folks, for sharing. If you have other stuff that you want to let us know about, please put it in the chat. Denise, I'm going to move to you. Get a more intensive update on what your work group has all been up to and how we can make sure we're staying abreast of everything that's happening.
Helps if I unmute. If you have a bingo card, you can mark that square. I spoke while muted. Anyway, thank you very much, Marty. I just wanted to say thank you very much to this group for remaining so dedicated and committed to moving the plan from idea to strategy to tactics. I am really looking forward to the next phase, my personal favorite, which is the action steps. So gonna really look forward to working with so many of you here on the Zoom today. And I also am really thrilled to have the opportunity to talk about the work of this group, which has the longest name ever, Homebuyer Identification and Preparation and Sustaining Existing Homeowners. It's a mouthful, but it's also because the work that is contained within that title is very varied. Out of the 7, what I think of as pie slices in our strategic plan, 4 of those pie slices are slices that come under the work of this homebuyer ID group. So we have a lot to update you on. I am not going to go into detail about everything. We just don't have time. You can look at the Google Drive document and see everything in there if you really wanted to dive in really deeply. You can follow up with me. I'm happy to talk to you in more depth one-on-one if you're interested about anything specific. Today, I want to hit a couple of highlights and really focus in on some things that have a lot of energy around them right now and that have some activity. So, but first, an overview. So the 4 pie slices that we have talked about in this HBID group, what we call it for short, Homebuyer ID. Marketing and outreach. I think actually several groups contributed some strategies to this particular area, but it is definitely focused on that community member, that person who might be an aspiring home buyer or might not have thought even to aspire to home ownership, but sort of who is that person that we're trying to reach. Then we talk about purchase supports and tools. And this is a little bit different than what the credit and lending group is, because it's not really about the loan product necessarily. It's more about the supports that might go around that and layer with that. So things like down payment assistance, home buyers clubs, individual savings accounts to build a down payment, loan remediation. So we'll talk a little bit about the strategies that are part of that particular group. And then pre-purchase counseling is a purchase support, but it is of such significant impact that it warranted its own slice in our 7-piece pie. And so we are going to talk, I think, most in depth about what's happening with pre-purchase counseling. And then finally, sustaining existing homeowners, which in and of itself has a huge array of topics. So that's really talking about if we are really working to increase the number of Black homeowners in the Puget Sound area, we are not going to be successful if we are seeing current homeowners losing their housing, whether that is related to mortgage default foreclosure, property tax foreclosure, or perhaps homes falling into disrepair, or maybe the home is no longer meeting someone's physical needs as they age and their physical needs are changing, or with the development of a disability. So that really covers foreclosure prevention and also home repair, modification, weatherization, things like that. We're not going to talk about that today. That is available in the plan. It's a lot, and there's a lot happening in that space that is continuing. I did want to just call out this arrow that is going from sustaining homeowners to pre-purchase counseling, because some of the strategies that we came up with related to sustaining existing homeowners tie right back to that pre-purchase counseling experience. And we do know that folks who go through pre-purchase counseling are less likely to enter into mortgage default. But even beyond that, when a person decides they need help, we want them to already know who to go to. That really eliminates this sort of floundering around, trying to figure out what the resources might be. And on top of that, building up the sort of guts to reach out for help, because it's not something that we look kindly on in our society when people fall into having financial challenges, or people are having difficult times. So our goal is that people would have a relationship with a pre-purchase counselor. That relationship would endure post-closing so that they would know who to reach out to when they run into trouble. And that's all I'll talk about with the sustaining existing homeowners today. How do I move through my thing here? Okay, so just high level, talking about marketing and outreach, we have 3 key strategies here, and they really do work out to be a sort of step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1 is creating that network of community-based organizations to facilitate trusted connections with community members for ongoing two-way communication. I will talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Once we build that network of partners, we are working with those partners to develop outreach tools and tactics specifically tailored to and appropriate for the Black populations, and meet the various needs that exist within the Black population in our area, and really addressing what those various needs might be, and also leveraging that there may already be some tools available. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to look at what's available, see where there might be gaps, and then develop whatever new tools we might need. And then finally, once we have the partners and we have the tools, we're going to go do the marketing. So we're going to implement a marketing strategy. We're going to make sure that we're presenting a full spectrum of homeownership products, services, and providers. And we're going to track our activities and assess outcomes so that we could see where we're being effective, where we're not being effective, and make changes as appropriate to increase our effectiveness. Talking a little bit more, when I say we're going to build a network of trusted partners, the tactics under here really are focused on who we want to be reaching out to and connecting with. We want to connect with pre-existing networks like the National Association of Real Estate Brokers and the Asset Building Coalitions and the Greater Church Council. We want to also make sure we're connecting with organizations that are deeply rooted in community, like El Centro de la Raza and Homesite. And then we also want to make sure we're working with community-based groups that may not have a home ownership program, so that if someone from their community constituency reaches out to them, they know where to refer them to for more support and more information. And we're making sure that people are getting connected to the legitimate resources that we all represent. And I also want to highlight here that this may not be a formal nonprofit of any kind. It might be completely grassroots group that is not a formal organization. So we really want to make sure we're sort of reaching at the different sort of collective level, organizational level, grassroots level. And we also want to make sure that we're building in mechanisms for feedback. So we want to look at what kind of feedback mechanisms these organizations may have for collecting feedback from their members or their community that they work with, see if that's something that we can adopt more broadly or adapt to be able to incorporate feedback into the work that we're doing. That last strategy was about implementing and tracking. So under this one, the first tactic is to build out WHRC's existing database of homebuyer assistance resources to include information on products, which is something we don't currently do, including products from for-profit entities, not just from nonprofits and municipalities. Ironically, this is actually what WHRC was formed to do. We were the brainchild of the Seattle Mortgage Bankers Association, created as a clearinghouse of loan products and home buyer supports that were useful for low and moderate income home buyers. So in some ways, this is really bringing us full circle to our original mission. Over the years, we have skewed much more towards supporting and working with nonprofit partners. So this is really exciting to us. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. I also want to highlight here the tactic involving increasing tracking of outcomes by partner agencies. So I know a lot of agencies track, how did you hear about us? And we want to see if we can get that to be fairly universally adopted among the different agencies so that we can then really get some solid data about how this is working and then kind of pivot when we need to. And then we want to create incentives to encourage people to provide outcomes to us or identify barriers that they encountered. So this might look like a follow-up survey paired with a gift card or some other kind of incentive and process to be able to collect that feedback. Going back to what I mentioned in the last slide, that there's two-way communication about the work that's happening. It's not just us going and saying, here's everything that you need to know, but also the community may have things they know that we need to know, right? So we want to make sure it's a dialogue. So kind of leaving the marketing and outreach realm and now talking about pre-purchase support and tools. This, again, I'm going to really stay high level on the first three of these. This, so again, this is things like down payment assistance. So that's the third, the gray square, the third square. This is home buyer clubs, which are, it's like a cohort model of home buyer education that may also pair counseling or coaching. And in this case, we'd like to see it paired with individual development accounts and matched savings to help people basically long range plan for home ownership while also building some savings. that's the first strategy. The second strategy focuses on a debt remediation revolving loan program that will help people pay down excessive debt that may keep them from being approved for a loan. We know from our own follow-up surveys that this is the #1 barrier to people getting that dream of homeownership is their debt preventing them. So we want to make sure that we're addressing that. These two strategies have really similar tactics, even though they're two different ideas. Those tactics are, look at what programs are already out there. What are the models that exist? Are there best practices associated with this particular? So are there best practices for home buyer clubs? Are there best practices for debt remediation revolving loan funds? And then look at what's out there, deciding with a group of key partners if we want to adopt one of these models whole hog, or if we want to pull pieces from different models and create something that uniquely suits our communities. So there's a process there, it's sort of a learning, exploration, really crafting what the product will be, and then implementing. And so for both of those programs, the tactics actually really track along that. A lot of what's happening as far as tactics go for the DPA strategy is policy advocacy. Obviously, we want to see consistent and increased down payment assistance from government partners. But also we want to make sure that we're getting down payment assistance from a variety of sources, including private and philanthropic initiatives. So that's another element. And we want to make sure that we're eliminating some of the restrictions that come with down payment assistance so that we can reach more people. Those are some of the tactics that we talked about. And then the last one is expand and maintain a central repository for all down payment assistance and low and moderate income lender offerings that would be accessible to home buyers, banks, housing counselors, and other service providers. This might sound familiar. It's almost the exact same thing that came up under marketing and outreach. And the tactics under this are really, again, relate back to the WHRC portal and the WHRC hotline. We have a database of down payment assistance services. People call our hotline and ask for information. We can share that information with them. But this is really about making that information more accessible to the different partners that are in our work, making it accessible to people who might want to do a more self-service, searching online for that information. And then again, expanding that to include the loan products themselves. So there's a number of tactics that are about sort of how do we expand and maintain that repository. And then the last area that I want to talk about in our sort of 4-point plan is pre-purchase counseling. And this is, I have to say, where I'm really excited about this one. I think this is really attainable. I think we can make this happen. The first one here is develop a system of intake and assessment that helps triage interested buyers and provides them with a tailored plan for readiness, and complete an online portal for coordinated intake and assessment. So basically sort of develop this single point of entry where a person can get assessed and triaged into various different tracks, if you will. Maybe they're self-selecting into those tracks with information we provide them. Maybe the system is encouraging them into different tracks. And then the resources that they need are available to them. So for example, someone might be triaged into ready right now, and they might be directed towards loan products that are available so they can decide to apply for a loan. Somebody might go through the assessment and it might determine that they need some support around building their credit score or their savings, and they can get triaged to those resources to help them work on that. And it's a bit of a longer term strategy. So this is really exciting. Partly this excites me so much because the foreclosure prevention resources that we work with at WHRC are highly networked in this way. Folks come in through the hotline and then they are triaged to the appropriate resource, which results in a sort of no wrong door approach for the client, which is better for them. So they don't end up calling 5 different places and sort of getting overwhelmed. They have one place they go to and then they kind of get on a track from there. But it also really helps the service providers because it reduces the duplication that happens when someone's calling 5 different places and trying to start perhaps an intake process with 5 of them and drops off on 2. And this way we're streamlining our resources. And it really makes it a better, tighter safety net for the client and, you know, for the homeowner, but also has some real benefit for the agencies involved. So the tactics under this particular strategy really focused, and I didn't even notice this until I was doing this PowerPoint and preparing for today. They really focus on that online tool. And so at some point, I think we'll need to add a tactic here that really addresses who the agencies are that we're going to work with and how they might, you know, what the human beings involved in this are going to be doing. But the number one tactic under this is to improve upon WHRC's existing home ownership portal with a focus towards coordinated home buyer intake and readiness assessment, referral to other organizations, and connection to resources. We also want to make sure that we're increasing marketing of portals on and offline, and you'll notice that is plural portals. Other agencies have portals as well. For example, HomeSite uses a portal for applying to their programs. So we would want to make sure that there's some coordination between those portals, that we're marketing these resources effectively to people. And really at the bottom of this is we have to make sure that these resources are user-friendly and appealing, so that they are targeted towards what home buyer needs are. So we want to, you know, really make sure that this is a tool that home buyers will find useful and helpful. Yes, so I want to just again reiterate, I think that I realize there's a tactic missing here that is sort of more about who the different agencies are and what the agencies might be doing. Obviously, you know, those supportive services that we're connecting people to through the portal, if they're not there, then that's not very helpful. So we're going to also work on that as well. The second strategy under pre-purchase counseling is to cultivate a wider ecosystem of collaboration between partners. And we're talking about formal sector lenders, financial institutions, real estate agents, to create a network of trusted brokers that understands the array of credit and debt remediation programs that are available to people, and how to refer denied applicants to the resources and alternative homeownership programs that are available that might actually help them attain that homeownership dream. This is also really exciting. I think anytime we work collaboratively, we are weaving a much tighter safety net for folks. The tactics under this one, so how are we going to build this ecosystem of collaboration? Again, we see utilizing the WHRC hotline and portal for partner referrals. So if you are, say, a real estate agent and someone is asking you for, you know, saying that they need help with credit repair, you know, you're going to be able to access some information about what the resource is that's available to them and how to connect them to that resource. Or you can refer them to the hotline or the portal and let us do that. So that's another option. We also want to create an association of organizations that are dedicated to this work and recognize that these agencies are really a trusted partner for home buyers going through the process. We want to reach out to trade organizations, mortgage brokers, lenders, to educate them about the nonprofit partners that are out here in this space and what the products are that they offer. So this again sounds like it's already a little bit underway in one angle. So we want to make sure that we're identifying those in these fields who are using best practices so they can educate their peers within their industry and really, you know, use that leadership to help kind of spread the word to their colleagues. We want to develop a clock hour class so that we can have real estate agents and other folks who have a requirement for continuing education, that will incentivize them to come to classes about the different down payment assistance programs and other supportive resources available. So that again, if somebody approaches them, they will know where to go or where to send them. We are really hoping to cultivate these mortgage brokers and lenders to work with buyers long-term. So folks who are not ready right now can come back when they are. And then finally, this one you'll see is sort of italicized, bold-faced, underlined. It's because this is sort of the top strategy that, the top tactic that we wanted to start working on right away, which is to establish a program for warm handoff of denied applicants to get them to the hotline or the portal. Again, this is all about not hearing a no if someone applies for a loan and they are not in a position to be approved for that loan right now. Instead of a no, it's a not yet, and here's some resources that can help you get to yes. So I think that, you know, our hope would be that with all of this work that we're trying to do that focuses on the homebuyer identification and preparation, that we'll be able to reach people even before the applying for the loan stage, so that we can work on cultivating them in that readiness piece before they apply. But we know we're not going to catch 100% of people in there. So people who are going straight to the application and getting knocked back, let's make sure that there's a warm handoff. And what we mean by that is we're not just handing them a brochure that says, here's some information, call these folks, but we are actually saying, you know, here's Susie at this agency and she is going to call you to set up an appointment so you can talk to her, right? Or I am creating an account for you in this portal so that you can connect to resources through the portal. We could talk about the details of what that looks like as we shape this program. I'm really excited to start having that conversation with folks. I think, I know Lisa DeBrock from the Finance Commission has kind of already started having some conversation with Lisa Goldsmith about what this might look like. And we're really hoping very soon to kind of dig in on getting that conversation more formally kicked off. But there is a lot of energy here, and I think it will make a big difference for people. So you've heard me talk about the hotline and the portal a lot, and that is because it's come up in a lot of different ways. This slide is really sort of consolidating that. So the dark orange is the different pie slices. So we had under marketing and outreach, there was a strategy to implement the marketing and track outcomes. And one of the tactics directly said, we want to build on WHRC's existing database. Under pre-purchase support and tools, one of the strategies was to expand and maintain a central repository of information. Under pre-purchase counseling, the strategy around coordinated intake and assessment specifically has a tactic about evolving WHRC's homeownership portal to provide that entry point and assessment. And then again, the second tactic under pre-purchase counseling with that warm handoff program is talking about the portal and hotline as a key hub in that work. So want to mention to people that for those who are not familiar with the portal, it's something that was conceptualized in about 2012. Marty Koistra and Mark Cody are two people who are on the call today that were part of that initial conversation. And it was part of a larger plan to implement a more networked approach to homebuyer processes in King County. And due to a lack of resources, we really haven't been able to implement all of the elements that were envisioned for the portal, but we believe that we are ready to move forward with that now. I am going to be reaching out very soon for some conversation with partners about how do we incorporate all of these things into the portal? What does that look like for us to do that? And we are going to hopefully have some great conversation about the ultimate goal, not in an abstract way, but in a way that can actually turn into a scope of work for a developer. We already have a developer that we're working with who is great and who is very familiar with the portal and our services. I have provided the plan to him, so he has had a chance to look at that. And we're just excited to get the conversation going. Our goal would be that we are starting work on this sort of really making the portal meet the needs that have come up through these conversations by June. So hopefully we'll have this conversation moving along and get the input we need to help create that scope of work and get under contract with folks. So I think that is all I have for you today to just talk about that. In closing, I would just say if any of this is new to you, if you're new here today, or if you were not part of the homebuyer ID and preparation conversations previously, but you would like to be going forward, you can email me. I will put my email in the chat. Please don't tell me in the chat because as soon as this meeting goes away, so does the chat. But if you want to email me, we can make sure you get on the mailing list for any future meetings. And yeah, just really looking forward to getting this sort of rolling up our sleeves and getting into this action stage. It's going to be exciting to see the change happen. That's it for me. Thanks, Marty.
Super, Denise. Thank you so much for taking us through that. And I want to go back to how patients opened us with the Zillow report on 2020 denial percentages. And I really want to amplify something, Denise. We don't yet know exactly in this market what our denial rates are based on race. And we don't know exactly all the reasons. One of the things we want to stop doing is denying people who are being underwritten directly off the street without any sense of suitability, any sense of helping them understand how they can deal with credit, debt, income, whatever issues there might be. Let us not continue to deny people by underwriting them directly off the street. Let's learn how to use the magnitude of resources that we have to help people get on the journey and be successful on that journey. So Denise, really appreciate you driving this work, and looking forward to seeing more of the results. Let me quickly take you through, I'm going to catch up on time here, what's happening with the Black Home Initiative that was launched this Tuesday. And if you can see my screen, I am trying to better understand and simplify an understanding for all of us of what we're up to. And this is my attempt to try to simplify that. And the 7-point plan really is the key overlay for all of this work. But I see our work essentially in 3 areas. The brown at the top is all about supply. The blue in the middle is all about what Denise just walked us through. How do we increase the number of mortgage-ready Black households and sustain the existing ones that we have? And the green is about alignment. And this is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges we are going to have in terms of getting our arms around all of the things that are happening, that are being conceived of, that everyone's doing, who's talking to who, what meetings are happening. And so the 7-point plan and the effort of the 3C initiative are all intended to try to help us start building a strong learning network so that we can get our arms around what it is that we're already doing. So let me just share with you a little bit about what this CCI initiative is, 3C, Connecting Capital and Community, now called the Black Home Initiative. We were fortunate to have Civic Commons in this area receive some initial funding from JP Morgan Chase and be named as one of 6 cities in the country to carry out a 3-year effort. The initial funding is for 3 years to try to launch some mechanism to address inequities, especially racial disparities, through housing. Civic Commons, with the help of 8 core team members from the community here, South King County and Tacoma, have proposed this line of sight. We're calling it, or our shared priority. And we'll be focusing on trying to increase the number of LMI Black homeowners by 1,500 in the next 5 years in South Seattle, South King County, and Northern Pierce County, increasing that number to 3,000 beyond that. More importantly, working on building a network and alignment in that network and trust, as well as tapping into changing policies and systems. And so again, that area of service is South Seattle, South King County, Northern Pierce County, in terms of where product will likely be put together and how things will happen there for new opportunities, as well as maybe some preservation, if any, exists. So Daryl Smith is one of the core team members, and then there are are roughly 26 full team members, of which many of you on this call are a part of. And I've been trying to figure out how to best explain how these now different groups intersect. If you can see this diagram, probably is not showing up exactly right. Maybe it is. Let's try that. We have a lot going on nationally. There are plenty of efforts, the 3x30 to 10x, NAREV. Just about anybody and everybody now has some kind of national effort. And we also have the statewide disparity study that's going on in work group that we're going to hear from in just a minute. And we have this network that we've been creating with all of you for the last year. Some of you might remember it was March 29, I believe, when we had the first summit of this group. And Glenn and I got together with the bankers, I think it was March 3rd. So it's been roughly a year since we've been at this conversation. What we're seeing or thinking is that the Black Home Initiative, the 3C effort, is going to be a demonstration and implementation of the aspects of the 7-point plan. We have the core team and the full team in there, and we have these work groups that we want to continue to perpetuate. And the greatest role of the network is this coordination and sharing promising practices and curating them that we will try to keep going. But we will emphasize the use of these work groups and hone in and really try to make real everything that you have identified by using this Black Home Initiative as a demonstration tool. And so this is sort of where we are currently conceiving of how these efforts will relate. We will want to keep the work groups going. We will figure out how we can best convene those through the various partners like the WMBA, the WBA, the Mortgage, the Master Builders Association, HDC, Denise's shop. We'll try to share some of that leadership of convening and the coordination of the effort. It was a sad day for all of us that Emily Howe had left Sound Communities because she was also helping coordinate some efforts here. Emily's gone on to work for the port, I believe. So we want to thank her as well for her efforts. So that's at a high level how things are relating. You can, I'll probably drop into the chat if I get time. If you can go to the Civic Commons website, though, there's a Black Home Initiative webpage there, and tells you more with some FAQs about where things are going. I will say two things before I hand it off to Daryl that we have been up to as part of that amongst the many. Two to amplify is that we've had 2 work group meetings on a pre-development fund. One of the first things that we'll be launching on the supply side is a pre-development fund. And with Erica's announcement, we're trying to work hard to see if we can link up whoever they pick as their contractor with these resources, so we don't end up with 2 or 3 intermediaries running 2 or 3 pre-development funds, but can actually link up and get the administrative value of that. So stay tuned on that front, but that will be one of the first things that will come into play. We'll also be coordinating with Denise, Daryl, and others on the Buyer ID side to begin launching a debt remediation fund, specifically designed to help folks who have some life event debt that they may not be able to clear up in time to qualify for closing on a mortgage, and figure out ways in which we can make that happen. And then we signed a contract today with a group called New Impact, which will be working with us over the next 3 months and intensely with a number of you in actually creating a roadmap of a Black household's journey to become a home buyer in this region. what are the steps? Where are the places they go? Where are all the impediments and bottlenecks in that journey? How are we able to figure out through the system that Denise has been talking about, the stuff you all know, to actually truly clearly understand what that journey is like? And this will be a very specific, data-driven, and peppered with some qualitative stuff. And to that end, I'll just close before I hand it to Daryl and say, if you go to the Civic Commons website, you will see under We Belong Here a new podcast featuring Andrea Caupain, Michelle Merriweather, and Daryl Smith talking about homeownership from their personal perspectives and journeys. It's well worth listening to. So Daryl, I'm going to hand it off to you now to talk to us about the Homeownership Disparities Group.
Sure, thank you, Marty. You know, part of what I'm hearing today, and it's actually encouraging and challenging, is many of us are at several different tables and conversations, but the work is really intersecting. And so after your presentation, Marty, two things jump out at me when I think about the Washington State Homeownership Disparities Work Group, which is leverage and amplification. We had our third meeting on the 24th of February. Several of you, I believe, are also on that very large group. And not surprising, the areas or the draft recommendations that we're moving toward, and there's still, I believe, one or perhaps two more large gatherings to go, are really coming down to 3 or 5 areas. The first is really on supply, something we're talking about a lot now anyway. How do we get to supply if we're really talking about providing opportunities for LMI families, in particular families of color? 2 is down payment assistance. 3 is on lending products. We talked a little bit about that today, but how do we increase the creativity around different products? Program knowledge as well. That's been talked about today as well. 4 is improving access. Okay, Denise talked a lot about that earlier. And then 5 is reducing barriers, something we've talked about today as well. So what I like about this, and maybe it's not surprising because many of us that are sitting on this call today are also part of this group, is we are amplifying over and over again some of the same challenges and potential opportunities that will be pushed forward to the Department of Commerce and therefore to the legislature to make some changes on. So this is encouraging, and I would certainly, you know, kind of continue to raise the flag on, if you're participating in that group, bring the 7-point plan pieces, the actionable pieces, into this conversation so we can make sure that that's captured and brought forward. The 2 consultants that are working with the Disparities Work Group, and it's Eco Northwest and BDS Consultants, they are between the large gatherings having half-hour conversations with each one of us to get that specific perspective. So there's an opportunity there to really push some of the pieces that we're working on individually and making sure that they're captured by this group. And so when the handoff happens, when the report finally comes out, we'll truly see a lot of the work that we've been doing in these other spaces captured by this group. So far, you know, so good. It's a little large and unwieldy, but I think they're doing a pretty good job of making sure that they're hearing from all of us, and we're pushing forward some of those same pieces. Next meeting, I believe, is in about a month, and calls between, I think mine happens next week, and perhaps some of yours do as well. So we'll keep at it.
Daryl, who else amongst this group, if folks wanted to make sure that their perspective got to that table, who else aside from you could they talk to on this?
I believe Patience is in this group. Denise is in this group. Kathleen Hosfeld is on the Disparities Work Group as well. There's at least 4 or 5 of us that I know of, and perhaps others. I believe Michael Dotson has been there as well from Banner Bank. There are several of us, so maybe we should include that in any communication that's going out today. Folks could identify themselves as part of the Disparities Work Group. And then if you have relationships with folks and there's something that jumps out at you, please, Lynn Peters as well, send them forward, and we can make sure that as we're having those conversations, we can push for those things as well.
Good. I think Glenn from the Washington Bankers Association.
Lisa DeBrock is there. Yes, of course. There's a bunch of us on there. Maybe all of us.
And Lisa, are you on it from WMBA?
I'm also on it, yes.
Okay, so for those of you in the banking industry, if you can connect with Glenn and Lisa also, or Michael. Any of the other folks who are on that disparities work group want to share their thoughts about where it's going, what it might yield for us?
Thank you, Marty. Zahid Chowdhury here, wearing 20 different hats. Also the public trustee for Thurston Housing Land Trust. And the last 3-4 years, I've worked with some attorneys to have preference for folks of color. And there are so many federal laws which comes into being and how to do it or do it right and fair, and down payment assistance and several other programs. But that is still moving forward, that how as a housing land trust or a cooperative, we can have better equity for folks of color, the marginalized, the disenfranchised, the redlining 1.0, redlining 2.0, and the redline 3.0 and all that. So those conversations are still going, but there are some possible ways that we can do it fairly and equitably without getting into the crosshairs of the federal fair housing laws, that we are giving preference over, folks of color than other things. So if anybody has something to say, please feel free to reach out. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, and we probably can we should probably spend a work session on this, but we have community preference policies passed in Seattle. Homesite and Homestead are actually utilizing those community preference policies. They don't get us all the way there, but there have been some recent rulings in the last several months from the federal government around special purpose credit programs. And we will make an effort to make sure that we get some of that information around to you all. I would encourage you though to look at, you can probably Google targeting and special purpose credit programs and get some of the recent thoughts on this. The Center for Community Investment, CCI, which is overseeing this 6-city effort, is talking about these issues at the federal level with a number of other groups, because it is conceivable that if you have a special purpose credit program, you can actually target at a 100% level. Certainly Habitat for Humanity affiliates, I think, can find protection under this new interpretation. So this is something that we need to definitely be spending more time on. And thank you, Beth. I see you came in late to join us. Welcome, Beth. And Beth has actually put a bulletin out into the chat to help as well. So probably, I think what we'll try to do is dedicate a session at some point down the road specifically to this topic, because I know it's of interest to a lot of us. Patience, I see you and Tina both have your hands up. Why don't we go to you first, Patience?
Thank you, Marty. I just wanted to underscore from the disparities work group that we've also had extensive conversations about how we can address the fair housing laws limitations that we have and really get to a place where we can target to be effective in closing that racial wealth gap. I know that there are, of course, legal limitations to be cognizant of, but that group has not held back in moving forward a proposal that can really challenge the state to be bolder in the proposals and get us to a point where we can move beyond proxy reference, which maintains status quo, but really get us to a point where some of the programs that we've seen, like some of the emergency rental assistance that have been able to target, could be replicated for homeownership opportunities. So I wanted to just underscore that point. We've also presented the Black Homeownership 7-point plan to that group and continue to elevate the strategies that are embedded in there.
Thank you, Patience. And Tina?
I wanted to say that King County is working on a community preference policy, and I don't know how far our policy team has gone. They've asked me for a couple, to look at a couple pieces related to how it intersects with housing finance program. So I know we are working on that as part of the anti-displacement, you know, one of the anti-displacement strategies is this community preference policy. And this policy would be just in the Skyline, West Hill, and North Highline neighborhoods to start. At least this one they're working on. And I could get more information on the timeline of like when this is going to council. I really have only been in one meeting on this policy so far, and I have one this afternoon. So I could get more info to the group later once I have it.
Super, yes. Please get that out to patients for sure. I see.
And us too, please. I mean, our focus is statewide, not just King County or Seattle, the whole state. So People of Color Community Coalition focuses on the whole state. Thank you.
So we will keep everybody alerted on the policy front, because when that does hit council, we'll of course want advocacy on it. And maybe also, can I ask patients, or Tina, can one of you give us an update on where we're at with the countywide EDI effort? Is that still alive, or patients?
Happy to. We have a robust coalition across the King County region that's moving forward a motion on establishing an equitable development initiative program, which would replicate what we have in Seattle, but have it be across King County. Council has discussed establishing an advisory group that can help guide in developing the program. And once the program has been shaped for proposal, we will have a permanent advisory committee as we have in Seattle, but also have the investment of those dollars be really comprehensive in terms of placemaking support, but also some of the cultural anchor centers that would need funding to really help many of them stay in place as some of the displacement pressures are taking on. We expect that there will be a vote over the next week or so on that motion to be passed by King County Council.
Super. So I think you keep your eye on the HGC website. They do put a lot of information out on advocacy opportunities, and you all want to weigh in to make sure that council feels supported. I don't see any of our Tacoma folks with us. I'm just scanning across here. I believe that this disparity study in Tacoma is supposed to be coming out shortly as well, which I think will be another tool and resource for helping us figure out.
Hi, Marty. I'm from the city of Tacoma. I can talk a little bit about the disparity study.
Yeah, where are we at with that? Thank you.
Yes. So the disparity study, we had presented that to study session to our council, I believe last week. And so we are in the stages right now of implementing our schedule. So I would love to connect with anyone who's interested in kind of starting the conversations right now. So we are in the process of really just the brainstorming of who's doing what right now, what services are being provided. I can also provide a copy of the report if folks would like to look at that as well. But I'm looking definitely at organizations, lenders that are interested in really supporting our Black community and other communities of color for homeownership. So I will be reaching out to people to do some listening sessions.
Thank you so much. And yes, let's coordinate offline with Felicia as well, who's on the core team for the Black Home Initiative, and make sure that we're doing that ecosystem mapping comprehensively and together. So patients, I'm going to go to you now to tell us what's happening at the state.
Thank you, Marty. And I will start off with thanking all of you for your work in getting us to this point with the Black Homeownership 7-point plan. I think we had quite a number of successes in 2021. And as HDC, we will be gathering to celebrate those wins as the affordable housing community. So I do want to extend an invitation at this point to the HDC 14th annual celebration on March 29th. I'm going to post this in the chat and invite you to register to join us. We will have some capacity for in-person attendance. About 300 people would be able to join in person. It'll be wonderful to meet some of you. We've only worked together virtually and haven't gotten to a place to be able to meet. So that's a great opportunity to get together and meet. I will also underscore that we will be celebrating the introduction of a new executive director for the Housing Development Consortium, and we're excited and looking forward to that celebration. So please consider yourself personally invited to the event. And with that, I will shift gears to the state level update. I put together some notes because some of these pieces are moving as we are in this meeting, and I am trying to track both our summit and some of the votes that are happening concurrently. But starting off with the work around the budget, which has been the biggest focus currently for this week to really get us closer to a final budget that invests very high in affordable housing and also get some bills passed, which, by the way, today, March 14th is the deadline for the opposite house to vote on bills that moved over to them in order to keep them alive. So those votes are ongoing. And there's quite a number of folks on here who are in the policy reform group who are also very present at the state level. So I will be inviting their perspective to collectively provide an update here in case they have more recent updates on some of the bills and some of the budget priorities. But overall, in terms of the state capital budget, we have a proposal that came from the House at $521 million for affordable housing and homelessness investments. And our goal here is to get the final budget to maintain this higher investment. And what's included there is $501.5 million for affordable housing. And then it includes $100 million for the Housing Trust Fund and $100 million for the Apple Health and Homes Act, which is going to intentionally invest more in increasing supportive housing. And I recognize that's not as relevant for some of you, but really important for us in the affordable housing community to get those investments and siting of permanent supportive housing. The Senate budget did one good exceptional thing, which is a dedicated $25 million for home ownership. Unfortunately, the title in the proposal did call out just one organization, but the intent there was overall home ownership investments. And we are not aware currently what the total will be for ownership overall, but this is a proposal that we are going to be supporting to get a higher investment for home ownership opportunities. And I think Ryan is on the call and he can provide more context on how those conversations are going. Ryan, you want me to pause and chime in here?
Yeah, I could just add real briefly. Based on the conversations that we've been having, it is likely to be for all home ownership, whatever the end up amount is. I would bet somewhere between 15 to 25 million because those are the two watermarks. But the thing that I would note and kind of the message that we're hearing is that the Senate and the House need to be hearing from more home ownership groups than just Habitat if we want to be able to see more home ownership funding actually being allocated in the budget. And I think that that's an important message that we need to be sharing amongst each other, is that it can't just be Habitat being the only ones pushing this. It needs to be all of us home ownership organizations supporting this kind of effort. So just wanted to flag that for everybody, but we are very excited that this is likely to happen, and we're probably going to get a substantial funding amount for home ownership in the capital budget when it's all said and done.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Any other comments from folks?
This is Kathleen, and I just wanted to chime in that the Northwest Community Land Trust Coalition has worked with Habitat Washington to create a joint letter regarding making sure that that $25 million, if it's available, goes for homeownership programs from all agencies, not just for Habitat. And so we have weighed in, and it will activate the Washington Affordable Homeownership Coalition to try to encourage them to do likewise.
Thank you both. And we know that the latest revenue forecast shows us that we have more revenue that could be dedicated to affordable housing. So really pushing strong to make sure that those investments come through is going to be important. And I appreciate all of your work at the state level. Lisa, I see you have your hand up.
Just a quick, within the MBA, we have a grassroots to notify members to send messages to their representative. I'm not sure if I followed completely, but would it be helpful for us to make what do we call it? A call to action for our members on this issue? If so, where do I get that information?
It'll be great to have you share with your members an action alert. We do have the Housing Alliance with an action alert that's more overall for investments in affordable housing. Happy to work with you on language specifically for home ownership. And I'm sure Ryan and Kathleen will be happy to help as well.
I was going to note, there is a Habitat Action Alert active right now that pushes for both the overall amount and specifically for the 25 for home ownership. So Lisa, if you want to throw your email in the chat, I can actually email you that link, and you can run from there if you'd like.
I would add, however, that if what we're trying to do is broaden the support and the perceived support and get other organizational names associated with that, ask that doing that action alert alone through Habitat might actually reinforce the idea that the money should go just to Habitat. So happy to help with some other sign-on letter or anything else that might be appropriate.
Yeah, you make a good point. Maybe we can have the WMBA have their own action alert and we can provide language. Great. So the expectation is that the capital budget negotiations will conclude over close to the weekend and anticipate that by Tuesday or Monday, we will have a final capital budget that will move forward. And then shifting gears to the operating budget, which I understand to be moving a lot more slower in terms of negotiations. But one notable investment in there is the $4.5 million for foreclosure prevention, which, as you listened to Denise earlier, this is really important funding, and all of you are very much aware of that. So that is a key priority to continue to push forward within the operating budget, and we are feeling confident that it will maintain those investments. Denise, unless you are reading it differently.
No, we do have some advocacy happening around some of the language in the proviso. Right now, it looks like the federal funds and state funds would both be according to the terms of ARPA, which is pretty restrictive. And so we're hoping for a language change to make the state funds not tied to any kind of control or limitations associated with ARPA, so that they could be more flexible and we can use them as a complement. So we're working with the Housing Alliance to try and get that change into the budget. Haven't heard a lot the last week about what's happening with it. So just sort of frantically texting and emailing to try and see if we can get an update on that. It's a technical amendment and not an amendment that changes the amount. So we're feeling pretty positively that it'll happen.
Super. Well, thank you. And then just a quick overview on some of the bills that are relevant to us here. We have the REIT exemption bill for affordable housing, which will provide an exemption on REIT if a property owner is selling to an affordable housing nonprofit entity or a public housing authority. And thanks to Habitat Tacoma, we had an amendment in there that now allows that this exemption can apply to ownership as well. So that bill just passed a few minutes ago on the floor, and we're excited to see it move forward. It had passed in 2020 and got vetoed when the budgets became to be really stringent on the state, and we're hoping that it comes through this time and stays once it gets to the governor's desk as well. And then the other bill that we have been advocating for on the HDC side is increasing the commission step limit, which was going to be sunsetting or lowering in the next few months by the end of the year. And we are advocating for its increase from 8 billion to 14 billion. And that bill has now passed the opposite house, and we're excited to see that no-brainer tool move forward, quite frankly. And then the other one that I think is relevant and is going to require some implementation and strategy thinking here within this group on the Black Home Initiative is House Bill 1827. It creates the community reinvestment account and uses revenue from the county bus tax revenues to establish this account and dedicate investment to quite a number of areas that are relevant in supporting communities. And I'm trying to scroll here, and we'll share this document with all of you. What's included under the economic development part is home ownership as a part of that. There is no specific percentage that has been called out. That's why I think it's going to be very critical to proactively get ahead before the timelines and get before commerce to prioritize some investments in home ownership. There are specific timelines that you will see here that they must adopt and have these phases be done by. And phase one has to be done by June 30th of 2024. But prior to that, in December of 2023, there has to be a report that's showing the work that's been done so far, and then there'll be a final report after that. So that's one that I hope Mari, the 3C initiative, will be taking up, and we're happy to support as well in coordinating with the different departments. And then a few bills, just in the interest of time here, that are relevant as well to our recommendations in the policy reform section 6 of the 7-point plan is the housing benefit districts bill that we really worked hard on. And Peter also is here on the call alongside others who have been driving this work, really bold visionary work that has been able to move forward. And we built a coalition, the session that got it further than it has gotten before, but we were still landing on the finance committee, not getting a vote to support this bill. But we're starting off with the representative who's been a champion, really building a coalition to help get us across the finish line in 2023. And then, of course, there was the middle housing bill, which many of you may have learned about, which would have allowed triplexes in some areas closer to transit and areas that are currently single family zoned. And that bill also was not able to make it across the finish line. So we have a lot of work ahead of us once the session is done, but we've also garnered some great wins, and we look forward to continue to partner in thinking of how an effective path can be really strategized in preparation for session next year. And with that, I will hand back over to you, Mari, and close us off.
Well, thank you, Patience. First of all, let me say thank you to all of you who stuck with us today for these past 90 minutes, for all of those of you who are doing things already. We are excited about what's next. You will continue to hear from us periodically as we work on creating a better communication and informational aspect to the network itself and get the Black Home Initiative 3C effort underway. There's a lot of exciting things happening, I think, all around. It seems like we're getting some momentum. I am more optimistic than I ever have been that Mark's vision from years ago on some coordinated intake and assessment will really start to mature with Denise's leadership. And I think there's just a lot of possibilities. Lisa, is your hand still up or did it stay up? Okay. I wish we had more time. I'm sure there's other things to bring up, but if, okay, Denise, I see your hand is up.
Some folks have expressed interest in seeing the disparities study that the city of Tacoma has available. And I was wondering if there's a way to add it to the Google Drive so folks might access it that way, and then we can send a link. I didn't know if there were going to be meeting notes sent out afterwards or anything today.
May I? May I please? Marty, thank you. Denise, we would really, really, really appreciate it to have it in an email or meeting notes or follow-up, because we have lots of activists, old and young, and some of them don't believe in, monopoly, Google. So taking a stand. And so we honor and we want to be inclusive to all. So that's why, we have 80-year-old activists and we have 20-year-old activists. So we want to be, that's why we prefer email if possible. We really appreciate it if that's possible, because that way we include the whole, community and our family of color together. Thank you.
Yeah, we will compile. Sorry, Denise. We'll compile all the links from this and save the chat and work with Allison to really help get this out.
You're awesome. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other last comments, then I would say enjoy your week.